Some people spend years earning authority, others just slap on a title and act like it gives them the power of law enforcement. That was Karen Mitchell, president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA, volunteer enforcer of rules no one agreed to, and the last person you'd expect to be at the center of a criminal investigation. But that's exactly what happened because one Tuesday evening, she picked the wrong person to mess with, a 17-year-old babysitter named Maya Rodriguez. Picture this, Maya, standing nervously at the gated entrance of our community, clutching her babysitting bag like a lifeline. She was one of the most responsible teenagers I'd ever met, always polite, punctual, and professional. But in that moment, she looked like someone who had just walked into a showdown she never signed up for. Facing her, Karen Mitchell, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, standing in the middle of the driveway like some suburban fortress guard. What started as one of Karen's usual power trips quickly spiraled into something far more serious, and completely illegal. To understand just how absurd the situation became, you need to know a little about Karen Mitchell. She'd been the unofficial dictator of Willowbrook Estates for 3 years, ever since she moved in from what she constantly referred to as a lesser neighborhood across town. Karen worked as a mid-level manager at some faceless insurance company, but based on how she carried herself, you'd think she was running the Pentagon. Her role as HOA president, a completely unpaid volunteer position, was something she approached like a full-time job mixed with a police academy fantasy. Karen's appearance was exactly what you'd expect: shoulder-length blonde hair that never moved in the wind, perfectly manicured nails that she loved to tap impatiently against every surface, and a permanently puckered expression like she was smelling sour milk. Her obsession with control showed up in the most ridiculous ways. She walked around with an actual ruler to measure lawn heights, sent written violations if someone left their trash can out more than 15 minutes after pickup. Once, she called an emergency board meeting because Mrs. Patterson dared to plant pink flowers instead of the board-approved white and purple varieties. And yes, Karen kept a notebook, a real one, with timestamps, photos, and detailed logs of every perceived neighborhood infraction. Meanwhile, Maya had been babysitting for our family, the Johnsons, for 8 months without a single issue. She was dependable, bright, and the kids absolutely adored her. A high school senior with aspirations to become a pediatric nurse, Maya had a calm, kind presence that made her a natural with children. She brought educational games, helped with homework, and didn't even flinch when our 5-year-old son, Jake, decided to turn the living room into a battleground of blanket forts. That Tuesday evening, everything should have gone according to routine. My wife, Sarah, and I were both caught in unexpected work emergencies. She was managing a client crisis at her marketing firm, and I was stuck at a board meeting at the hospital where I work as a physician. Our kids, 8-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Jake, were fed and waiting inside, eagerly anticipating Maya's arrival. What none of us could have predicted was that Karen Mitchell had apparently declared herself the neighborhood's evening gatekeeper. Even though the community gate was open, as it always was during evening hours, Karen had planted herself squarely in the middle of the entrance like a human roadblock. Maya, polite as always, explained who she was and why she was there. She was coming to babysit for the Johnson family on Maple Drive, like she had every week for months. She even offered to show Karen her driver's license. Her voice was calm, but you could see in her eyes how nervous this was making her. Karen, utterly unmoved by reason or reality, accused Maya of trespassing and demanded to know why her name wasn't on some made-up visitor list that no one had ever heard of. She spoke with that special tone she reserved for HOA business, a grating mix of condescension and fake authority that made anyone within earshot instantly want to walk away. Maya explained again that she'd been babysitting for our family, that the kids were inside waiting, and that she could call Sarah right then and there. Karen cut her off with a dismissive wave of her hand and declared that none of that mattered because proper protocols hadn't been followed. Of course, these so-called protocols didn't exist, they were just another part of Karen's HOA fantasy world. According to her, all service providers and visitors needed to be pre-approved through official channels, but no one in the community had ever seen or heard of such a system. Maya, clearly growing anxious, especially knowing our kids were alone inside, tried to step around her. That's when things went from obnoxious to dangerous. Karen physically stepped in front of her again, arms outstretched like some deranged crossing guard, and insisted Maya had no right to move forward. Maya pulled out her phone and called Sarah. I could hear the tremble in her voice through the speaker as Sarah put her on hands-free. Maya described what was happening, that she was being physically blocked by a woman who refused to let her into the neighborhood. Sarah asked to speak directly with Karen, but Karen, in true cartoon villain form, refused. She actually said she doesn't negotiate with trespassers or their accomplices. Yes, she called my wife, who had hired Maya to watch our kids, an accomplice. Karen even had the nerve to suggest that Maya, a 17-year-old carrying a babysitting bag filled with children's books and art supplies, might be casing the neighborhood for a break-in. At this point, other neighbors had started to notice. Mrs. Patterson had come outside to walk her dog and was watching the scene unfold in disbelief. Across the street, the Martinez family's teenagers were pressed against their window, probably thinking they were watching a live episode of some crime show. Sarah, furious and maternal in a way I had only seen a few times before, left her office immediately and sped home. 15 minutes later, she arrived at the scene, where Karen was now openly threatening to call the police, not on herself, of course, but on Maya. She claimed Maya was trying to force entry into a private community. The irony was completely lost on her. Sarah parked, got out of the car, and approached with that calm but deadly look every protective mom learns. She reminded Karen point-blank that Maya had every right to be there as an invited guest. Sarah explained that Maya had been watching our kids for months, had a scheduled appointment, and that Karen had zero legal authority to prevent access to our home. Sarah even showed Karen the text exchange between her and Maya confirming the babysitting job. But Karen, unwilling to back down, doubled down instead. She pulled out a folder filled with official-looking papers, most of which turned out to be printed emails and blank HOA forms, and insisted that, as president, she had the right to determine who could and could not enter the community. Then Karen said the words that would come back to haunt her: I will not allow her to move from this spot until proper authorization is provided through official channels. That was it. Sarah calmly pulled out her phone and dialed 911, not to report Maya, of course, but to report that a woman with no legal authority was physically detaining a minor and preventing her from accessing the home of her employers. The dispatcher took the report seriously, especially when Sarah clarified that Karen was not law enforcement, had no security credentials, and was physically blocking someone's movement. Sarah gave the exact location, described both parties, and waited. When the police arrived, Officers Martinez and Chen, they took statements from everyone involved. Maya was calm and articulate. Sarah provided clear, verifiable information. And then Karen, still believing she was in the right, made a critical mistake. She bragged about how she had physically blocked Maya and prevented her from walking past. The officer's expressions shifted immediately. Officer Martinez explained in measured tones that physically preventing someone from moving freely, especially when they pose no threat and have a legitimate reason to be there, constitutes unlawful detainment under state law. Karen's confident smirk vanished. Her voice wavered, her palms began to sweat, and then the handcuffs came out. Neighbors watched from porches and sidewalks, some recorded the moment on their phones. The same woman who had spent years lecturing others about the rules was now being led into a patrol car, charged with unlawful detainment, a misdemeanor, but still a serious one that could carry up to a year in jail and a $5,000 fine. In the days that followed, the HOA issued an official statement clarifying that volunteers, regardless of title, have no authority to detain or block entry to guests. Maya returned to our house the following week, met with cheers from Emma and Jake, who had watched the entire situation unfold from the front window. Karen's yard, once decked out with HOA excellence signs and neighborhood beautification awards, was suddenly bare. In court, Karen was sentenced to 6 months of probation, 100 hours of community service, and a $2,000 fine. The judge noted that her abuse of a volunteer position and reckless behavior were deeply troubling. Karen's shocked expression in that courtroom said everything. And from that day forward, no one in Willowbrook Estates mistook her clipboard for authority again. If you enjoyed this wild suburban saga and want more real stories about HOA drama, justice served, and the people who finally say enough is enough, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and tap the bell so you never miss a story. Trust me, the next one's even crazier.